Welcome to Comfort Havoc number 2. This video is also on racism. It is not for children, it is for the strong at heart. So tonight I had an extra credit assignment for my government class, which I have to talk about tomorrow. And the assignment was we were doing forms of free speech and other things. And in the free speech, it came up to things that they think that colleges should talk about. And colleges should have a place for us to go gather and talk about. I'm trying to see what damn time it is. My phone's not working. Okay, it's 15 to 12. So, by the end of the night, we had got to typing about how we should all talk about people of color. And not just black people, but people of color in general. So that means Asians as well as blacks, etc., etc. And first thing I said was, let me type thank you guys, because that is something that I've always decided that if it ever came up at school where we would talk about people of color, no matter the color, then I would participate in that. So if we had an Asian formative and everybody was invited and everybody had their say, then I would damn sure be there. Not so much of what I could say, because I would have to ask them, are you counting Native Americans as the Asian equivalent as well? Because Native Americans are biologically Asian. And I don't have a lot of experience with Native Americans that were bad, but I don't have a lot of Native American experiences that was good, because I never got to go to the reservation. Only Native American influence that I had was my grandmother on my father's side's mother, which would be my great-grandmother. And she basically just told me stories about running through the woods in her moccasins. And maybe a couple of Native American legends. Not so much coyote, not so much Bigfoot, but little itty-bitty stories that are somewhere locked in here, but not all firing on all four cylinders. Now, when it comes to like the black experience, as well as the white experience, as well as the Asian experience, I'm more than willing to participate. So that's why this video is important to me right now, and that's why I need to make this video before I go jump in the shower. So the thing about schools in colleges, I don't know if the school I attend has a free speech zone. But also, being that we're all not really supposed to be on campus because of the COVID-19 crap, debating is not really an option right now. But I know that like last year they did have some kind of debates and stuff that was mandatory for us to go attend. And I have gone to attend them, whether it was for one of my law enforcement classes, which all of my classes basically are law enforcement classes, but for that and some other stuff. The law enforcement stuff itself, where I had to go sit for like 2 hours and listen to cops talk, that was mandatory. I think it was mandatory. It doesn't matter. I know that me and a girl named Brooklyn were there. Brooklyn stayed for like that hour and a half, and then she had to go to work, and I didn't have to go to work till it was over, so I stayed until it was time for me to go to work. And by the time it was time for me to go to work, so they had two shows. One was in the morning from like 9 to like 1 or 9 to 2. It was 9 to something. I know it was 9 o'clock in the morning when I got there, and I didn't get my free book. And I did have to get the guy to autograph it so I could take it to the teacher the next night. So that part was done. And I vouched for Brooklyn, and she vouched for me. Now, as far as the thing went, it went on and on and on. I almost fell asleep twice, but I focused. I got up, started listening to the guy a little bit more, and it was a very good conversation. Now, as far as other like things with color, that stuff never really came into be. But if the school ever did that, like I said, I damn sure want to be there just to see how the young people have elevated their game versus my generation Xers and racism and stuff like that. So, when you're in and when you sit there and you watch racial stuff, you have to understand there's more than one point of view. And a lot of different things lead to racism in the first place. Alright? And what you have to understand is that racism is a point of view aspect. Alright? And from the point of view of when it's white, and it's white on white racism, people rarely pay attention to white on white racism unless the words NL comes out of their mouth. The N word and lover. So unless that comes out of their mouth from another white person, most people don't really pay attention to that. You know, when someone calls another poor white person PWT, poor white trash, that's about the only time that it may spark an interest. As most other white people are like, well, that's those two white people's problem. I'm going to walk away. When two black people are fighting and the N word is exchanged on more than one occasion, and then the MF and N word is exchanged, then everybody starts to look around to see if they're going to go fisticuffs. Same thing can be said when Asians are fighting. Now, when Asians and blacks are fighting, the white people pull out the popcorn. When blacks and whites are fighting, the black people pull out the popcorn. And so do the whites and so do the Asians. When the Asians and whites are fighting, the black people pull out the popcorn. You know, so everybody's pulling out popcorn to watch the drama unfold. But no one in that whole group of people will sit down and peacefully talk about what the hell sparked it in the first place. It's too much like the right thing to do to sit down and say, okay, Bob, tell me what it is that I've done to you besides be born and bring up all your air. Did you specifically hate me? And Bob would be like, well, to be honest with you, you've done nothing to me. I don't specifically hate you. I hate your entire fucking race because you're black. Now see, me and Bob can be friends after that. But it'll be because we're in school. And because we might work together. But when Bob goes home, Bob's not going to invite me over for pizza and beer. Because Bob knows there's no way in hell I'm showing up. You know, if I have to meet Bob anywhere, I'm going to meet Bob in public because I know that not only will I be on my best behavior, but Bob will be on his. I'm sorry, Bob was like the only white name that I could really think of at the time. Alright? I could have called him Robert or Dick or that Richard. Either way. But there are a lot of black Bobs too. You know? And if I was white, the name would still probably be Bob. Right? Or unless I wanted to be ethnically diverse. What's a good ethnic name? Tyrone. So if I was white, I would use the word Tyrone. But guess what? I actually met a white Tyrone once. So that was awesome. I've never met an Asian Tyrone yet, but I have met a white Tyrone. I don't know how that happened. I just know I met a white Tyrone. It was many, many years ago. It really threw me off. And you know, when you're thinking about these things, you know, people don't try to view the other person's aspect. Blacks only see racism from the black point of view. Whites only see racism from the white point of view. Asians only see racism from the Asian point of view. But none of us collectively sit down and say, if I could see that from your point of view, would I view this differently? Of course you would. Because culturally, you would have an understanding of what makes it racist to that person. Being black doesn't necessarily mean that everything that's racist is racist towards a black person. You know, however, as a black person, when someone shouts out the N-word, it's the first word that gets people highly upset that are black. Unless you're like me, who's multicultural, I get upset over any racial derivative. If someone calls me the N-word, I'm not happy because I have a name. If someone calls me Chief, I'm not happy because I have a name. And if you've been with my channel long enough to know, you know that Chief is not a good idea for you to call me that. I don't like being called Chief. I hate being called Chief. Granted, I am part Native American, but I am not the descendant of a chief that I know of. And I don't want to be called Chief because technically it's kind of insulting. You know, it's just one of the things that has developed over time. I don't like being called Chief. Period. I also don't like being called the N-word. I don't like being called half-breed. However, here's where I become a hypocrite. In each and every story that I wrote for myself as a character to play, I play a guy who often gets called half-breed. In every story I play, I get called half-breed to teach people about the racist shit that I've gone through in life as a young child. Because in most of my life, I have dealt with some racist ass shit. You know, and 9 times out of 10, especially like in grade school to college, there's been 1 or 2 insults of me on a racial level. You know, and then there have been some things that have been insulting me just because of my size, because I don't seem threatening to people. And that's cool because the truth of the matter is, The less threatening a person looks to you, the more dangerous that person actually is. And that works in my favor because no one thinks that I can fight. And as long as they don't think I can fight, victory is assured. No, never underestimate anyone. Anyone is capable of screwing you up on any given day. So keep that shit in mind. Now, the thing is, when we all sit down and gather, if I prick my finger right now, there will be red blood. Am I going to do that to make a point? Hell to the no, because I don't like pain. I don't like blood, but I really don't like pain. And no video on earth is worth bleeding for unless I'm getting paid and it's going to be one hellacious martial art movie. Other than that, no. And I'm pretty sure all of you watching aren't going to say, if I prick myself, will I bleed? Let's find out. No, I don't think anybody's going to be that damn stupid. And if you are, you should probably go get some help. I'm sorry. You really should probably go get some help. But I'm not making that video for that. I'm making this video to prove a point. And the point is that no matter how a person sees it, a white person can understand a black person's pain, but they can't really feel it. A black person can understand a white person or an Asian person's pain, but they can't really feel it because it's not really in their face on a daily basis. And it works all the way around. Because when you think about it, if I go around calling white people the C word, C as in cracker, or the H word, H as in hockey, I'm going to eventually hit the white person that shit's going to strike a nerve, and they're going to strike me in the mouth. Alright? And it would be the same thing if I went around saying the same thing to Asians. If I started calling Japanese people Japs, Korean people Gooks, Chinese people Chinks, I'm going to piss off one of them. And I'm going to get hit in the mouth. Alright? And it's not that I wouldn't deserve it. It's because here I am racially insulting them. You know? And what if they're from Indonesia? And I've mistakenly called them a Chinese person. Or a Japanese person. Even that gets offensive to some people because a lot of people out there in Asia fail to understand that Americans, no matter what they tell you, they can't tell y'all apart. Honestly, they can't. No matter what they tell you. If they're not living in Hong Kong, they're not going to be able to, oh, that's Mr. Lee. He's Chinese. And that Mr. Lee is Korean. And that's Chang. Chang is from Vietnam. And I know you're thinking, but Chang is not a Vietnamese last name. And I explained this in a video before, so let me wrap that up really quickly. 9 times out of 10, if you are in a country that is lower and it has been conquered by a country that is wealthier or higher, they forced a lot of soldiers or humans, POWs or whatever, they forced the nation's people to take their last names. So when you come across a Vietnamese person whose name is not Nguyen or God damn it, what is the other one? Yun or something in that nature, 9 times out of 10, somebody in their family was probably involved in some shit that had to have their names forcefully changed by government or something went wrong. It's the same thing with Japan and China, and the same thing with Korea, the same thing with North and South Korea, the same thing with Mongolia, and that's how Genghis Khan, because Genghis Khan actually was Mongolian, and all kinds of, according to history. No one really knows the truth about these things. It's just what they say. But, you know, Genghis Khan was Mongolian, who was in charge of China. However, he was supposedly the reason why they built the wall so that no one else could get in. And his son and his grandson were the ones who were closer related to Chinese. Now, unless you count the people of the Hung or the people of the Hmong, those guys were all Chinese. That being said, back off your history lesson. The fact of the matter is, no matter what race you come from, if you're saying something racially derivative towards someone in an insulting manner because you said it, you're not feeling what they're feeling. You know, it's kind of like if you spit in somebody's face. That's kind of what you're doing just verbally. So if you spit in someone's face, you're not helping their day. I'm just saying, you know, you're not helping their day at all. And you should probably take that into consideration before you do anything stupid. Racism works on the principle of whatever I say that comes out my mouth can offend you on every single level. Therefore, if I am a racist and I choose to say racist shit to hurt your feelings, I meant to say it. I'm not taking it back. And I'm trying to hurt your feelings because that's what I do. Now, if we all could sit down, or if we could do like Star Trek or even Mass Effect, where you can be whatever race you want. If you can live in the shoes of someone else for a day, and it be a racist moment where I take you, your whole essence of your body, and put you in the body of a hot, sexy Asian chick. So now you have these two things that are going to happen. You're going to have sexual harassment happen, because there's going to be a lot of white, black, and Asian dudes sexually harassing you about how bad they want to sleep with you. And you're going to have some racist dudes. He's like, I wouldn't sleep with her. She was the last woman on earth. Is her lower regions the same way her eyes are? Trying to make this as polite as possible, people. So, and then let's say you live that day. So those 2 days go by. The first day you went through the racial shit. The second day you went through the sexuality shit. So now I'm going to put you in an Asian man. You're going to get the same treatment, just not the sexual harassment. You're going to get the opposite of sexual harassment, because I'm only going to send hot black, white, and Asian chicks who think you're horribly disgusting and they don't want to have anything to do with you. And then when it comes to the racial part, I'm just going to send black and white men with all the racial derivatives that they can possibly throw at you. And believe me, because you're Asian, there's a fuck ton of them that they can. And then you're going to go back into your body. After you go back into your body, you probably will never be a racist again, unless you're just bona fide hardcore like that. But I'm going to do that with everybody. So for 2 days, you get to experience the life as someone else, living their life and going through the racial trauma that a racist would put a person through. And I'm pretty sure after that, like if we had a machine where we could do that, and you'd only be on the machine for like 2 hours. In those 2 hours, you would live 48 hours in the life of a person that we would assign you in a simulator, where you would be stuck there. You have to go through your entire day. So for 2 hours, you have 24 hours to go through your entire day as one person this day experiencing that, and the next day another person experiencing that. So, or we can do it even better and make it 48 hours, so that you have 2 days as this person and 2 days as that person in the 2 hour time span that you're in the machine. See how that would work? But that would definitely change your perspective on the racist shit that comes out of your mouth. Because you'll be thinking, damn, am I like that? Is this how that feels? Once you figure that out, you'll stop. So I'm going to end this with this. When I was younger, and I told you guys in the other video about Umar Johnson, when the black girls that told me I wasn't good enough to date black girls and that I would never be good enough to date black girls, that shit stuck with me so bad that I stopped. But I didn't stop mostly because of that. I stopped because when you're looking down the barrel of a gun, things are a whole lot different versus when you're on the business end than when you're actually the person pulling the trigger. And then, I haven't had too many problems with dating outside my race. The problem is, can a multicultural man really date out of his race? Being that I'm part Cherokee, part black, and part white, and Native Americans are biologically Asian, so am I truly dating out of my race if I date Asian women? It's a question you guys need to ask yourself about interracial dating. It's also a question that you have to ask yourself about if I don't want to date outside my race. So I basically had to find a chick who's just like me, who's Native American, black, and white. And if I can't, well, then I just got to find a chick. That being said, I want you guys to be very good to each other. This is Kung Fu Habit number 2, B, C, and U.